put my hand, and I have never felt it before, but the stone was vibrating under my hand. I could feel it like buzzing. And you take your hand off and you put your hand back on, and I could feel this energy of zzz, and it was just like, oh, that's amazing. And I turned around and I said to him, I went to say something to her, and we both just stood there and was like, oh my days. And we could see the whole of the Abbey.
My voice can show me the way. Hello and welcome to this new episode of Dandelion Stories Becoming the Bard. Today I am sitting with the lovely Carly of Bardware from Batten. And I've just noticed that's exactly what your name is on the screen as well, so that's great. I wanted to bring Carly in to chat with me today because Carly I met almost a year ago. I met in May last year, and I can't almost believe that it was less than a year ago because I feel like I've known you a lot longer than that. And it's been such a lovely journey so far of being one of your friends, and I just feel like you've been so supportive of me and my journey, and I felt really seen and heard when I first met you, and I met you at Castle Combe racetrack circuit on the Steam and Vintage Fair, which I go to every year with the Caravan Club because we run a rally there, and you were there with your stall, with your Bardware store, and it was like the last day. We were just we just thought, oh, we haven't been round here yet, we haven't been round this corner yet, and we came around and I was like, what? Yes, this is my kind of stall. And I remember being there for absolutely ages and just kind of wanting to hang out with you, but my kids were a little bit grumpy. It was a hot day, they were tired, they were like, they wanted to go home. And we connected, and you were like, I want to speak to you again. And so yeah, I just wanted to say that, just to say that I really appreciated that day and meeting you, and I felt really, I don't know, there was just something really positive about that meeting, and you invited me there and then to come and be at one of your events that you were hosting, and it was just that faith, that trust, that intuitive, like, yes, we're connecting. And so yeah, thank you so much for that, and welcome to the podcast, Carly.
Hello. You're most welcome. I remember that day because you ended up you were telling me all about your dandelion story, some of your dandelion story, and you ended up buying a drum beater, your white drum beater with your unicorn on. I remember that. I've never forgotten it. And when you were telling me about, I mean, out of context, you know, we're a pagan stall in the middle of a steam rally. So we're probably we were probably the only pagans in the village at that moment in time. Yeah, it was just one of those moments, and you were talking, and there was just something that I was like, you need to get your voice out and heard. And because me and my wonderful friends organise 3 holistic fairs a year, I just thought I need you to do a workshop to put your voice out to people, to get them, because I love music. I've been brought up with music. My dad is the bard from Bardware. So my dad's a guitarist. I've been brought up around music, and as soon as you said you sing and you encourage people to open their throat chakras and sing, we all know, all of us, if anyone ever turns around and says they don't sing in the shower, they don't sing when they're hoovering, and they don't sing in the car, I think that's rubbish. I think everybody hums, sings, finger taps or something when they're on their own. You don't have to sing out, in public, do you? But the fact that you were bringing that to people and women, to give them that power, that impact to find themselves, especially last year, because I think there was again another fluctuation bring of people coming around and realizing there's more out there, thinking out the box, bigger thinking, taking off the blinkers, and and you just really resonated. The whole thing resonated, and I was like, I just had this, my little voices in my head, my little guides and things were going, she needs to get out there, and I was like, yes, I know, I know she needs to get out there, she needs to be seen, I know, that's why I'm asking her, hang on. You know, when you get a nag, get a guide nagging you in here, go, ask her for God's sake, ask her. So yeah, I got yeah. So that's you know, we did connect, and I, you know, ever since, like you say, every time we meet, we chat, it's just like blah, 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 blah. It's like we've known each other for years. We probably have, and just not realised.
Yeah,
You know,
past lives and all that. So many people
yeah,
that are coming around me now. And actually, that weekend, I was spending time crafting a song which is on my album called Magical Beings. And I very much class you. I was calling you in that weekend with the song, you know, and it just since I wrote that song, I mean, the amount of magical experiences and magical people that have come into my life, and I always say that my songs are spells, and yeah, it's just been a magical mystery tour ever since that
yeah.
weekend, really.
That's what songs are. That's what, you know. That's what they are. They're incantations, their chanting, their empowerment, their stories, their you know, that's where bards come from. They were storytellers. Okay, they did it for a bit of cash, you know, but I mean, even in medieval times, what sold? You know, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Hooray! So, you know, they would tell a story.
Thinking about that, actually, because it was a couple of months after that that I felt the call to become a bard, and actually, your stall and meeting you, and the fact that you were called Bardware Frog Lane was like possibly the first time that I'd seen that word or made that
Oh,
connection. I
okay.
mean, do you know
Oh,
what I mean?
okay.
So it was like,
Yeah.
actually, even though I say I didn't know what that word, because I really didn't, it wasn't conscious, I wasn't consciously aware of it anyway. It was probably deep in my
Mm,
subconscious for sure. But
mm,
consciously, it wasn't a word that I used, it wasn't a word that I really understood. And I did actually go away once I heard the call. I did go away and do some research, like what does this actually mean? What is it?
yeah.
And it was like, oh, this is what I'm doing. Okay, I can get
Yeah.
on board with
Yeah.
this. And so
Yeah.
you mentioned your dad as well, your lovely dad, who actually so lovingly adorned and crafted
Oh,
my
yeah.
staff for me
Yeah.
back
Beautiful
at the
stuff.
end of last year. And I have to thank your dad publicly here right now, not only for this beauty, which comes with me whenever I'm out on the land singing ceremony, but I managed to talk to him at some length on the day about his guitar playing, and he's got the most amount of guitars I think I've ever seen in one place. They cover his.
You tell me about it. I had to move him from London to Wiltshire with his 27 stringed instruments. It's like, where do you put them?
It was so fun. He had them going up the stairs, around the corners, all over the living room wall, like hanging. And I was just
Yeah.
like in awe. And I was like, can I get one down and have a play? And like, I couldn't play at that point at all. I was very much still in that mode of like, this is something I've always wanted to do, but I don't think I'm good enough to do it. And he was so lovely, and he just like helped me. He showed me. He was like, just go ahead, just play. And I was like, okay. And it was after that, very soon after that, that I thought, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to buy a stringed instrument. And I ended up buying my tenor ukulele, which you know now that I absolutely love. It's my
Yeah,
favourite thing.
brilliant. Absolutely. Again, an inspiration. I mean, to sit and, oh, something's just come into my head about a certain young man. Anyway, we'll talk about that in a minute. Musical instruments are such an inspiration, and you watching you self. So you're self-taught. My dad taught himself when he was like 12, to play guitar, and it brings so much out in people. So there's a young gentleman. I'm gonna do. Is it all right if I do a tiny small plug? So I'm going to be part of a podcast with three other people in June. So I used to do one. and then I'm collaborating with three amazing people in June. And one of those lovely people is called Thomas Clare, who you've probably seen at my events. He does tarot reading. He also has self-taught himself to play guitar. And he's just recently done an open mic night, which I think is so brave, because it's not like karaoke. Karaoke, if you say you're going to do karaoke, people don't mind if you hit off key or if you're slightly a bit tipsy and you're singing all like a killing your cat. Not that that's the thing to do, but you know what I mean. It doesn't matter. But an open mic night, people in the audience they say they don't, but they do set an expectation that you can hold a note and you can play the instrument you've got in front of you to some degree. So I think it's really, really put yourself. And this young lad, I first knew Thomas a few years ago, and he was so quiet, and I watched him walk around at one of our fairs, which was held in the Saxon Hall, and he stayed there for hours. And he's quite distinct. He's a very tall, quite broad young man, and he was quite distinct. And I was thinking, cool, that young lad's been here for some time. So this is before I sort of knew him personally. But you talk to him and he would like hardly look at you, and he was quite reclusive. So him to go from that to this open mic night, teaching himself playing guitar, singing Oasis like Champagne Supernova and things, and he's good. He is good. And that is like music, being behind the guitar, his spiritual path, all combined, this big snowball, to where he is. And I messaged him the other day, and when I talk about him, I get a little bit emotional because I feel a bit like parental, maternal, big sister type thing. I mean, basically, I'm so proud of you, Thomas. You're so good. He's probably thinking, God, this weird woman, But my dad was the same. I mean, you've met my dad. He's quite reclusive. We always used to joke, and when he lived in London, they always used to say, "Oh, the recluse lives there," But you give him a guitar, and you stick him on a stage, and it's completely different. You wouldn't think it was the same person. He should be up there rocking away, and it'd be like, yeah. So the music is an amazing thing, like you say. It just brings out. It just ups a gear, doesn't it? Just brings out that confidence. It's a bit like putting on a uniform, but not putting on a uniform. You just lose yourself. I mean, I've done drumming circles and conducted drumming circles and lost myself. A friend of mine said to me, "Do you want to get up and move around?" I was like, "Oh yeah, sorry."
Yeah,
because they knew my plan.
I want to get into all of the different things that you do, and kind of a little bit about why you do them and how your life is in general. But before I do, I just want to say that I can totally resonate with that story. I mean, I have not been necessarily reclusive throughout my life, and I have always had a level of confidence to me. It definitely comes naturally to me. However, I definitely shut parts of myself down. I shut a lot of myself down. When I look back to my childhood and kind of the trajectory of where my soul was taking me in my early years, and how just going through teenage years, and I started to close parts of myself off. And actually, now that I'm writing songs, which was something I did start during my teenage years, but again, I stopped because of fear of, I think, being judged mainly. And now I'm at the age I'm at in my mid-40s. I'm not scared of that judgment anymore. And I've been through a lot, and I've lived a life, and I do have something to say. I do. I feel very like the songwriting and my spiritual journey are going kind of hand in hand in that respect. And so, I'm about to embark on a season very different to last year and the year before, where I was sharing songs in circle, which were largely other people's songs that I'd learned. now I'm going to be sharing my own songs and actually playing the ukulele, which is something I kind of felt I never would be able to do, is to sing and play at the same time. And the fact that I'm now doing it fairly confidently, but you know, doing it in front of an audience is different again. So yeah, I really feel for that chap, and I also, yeah, it's kind of making me feel like, ooh, I'm about to go to that stretchy place
Ooh,
myself.
yeah, and that's good. You see, songwriting. You know, my dad's written some songs as well. It's a bit, you know, when you were just talking, you were saying about writing your own songs. It's a bit like journaling, you know. So writing songs is another way of journaling. You know, they don't have the rhyme, they don't have the, but it's a way of writing down thoughts, feelings. When I think about what my dad's written, and my dad's got, he's got poems published. You know, this was like days before. This is like the years before Amazon or you know, going digitally publishing posts. You know, it's hard work. You'd have to go around to publishing houses, and you know, it's a trudge. So he's got odes published. And when you know you were talking, I was sat there thinking it's actually a way of journaling, because a lot of his odes and his songs about how he felt at the time. When I read them, when I read his lyrics back, it's like how he was feeling. He's actually just sort of posted over all his lyrics that he's done of varying poems and feelings, and there's like 40 odd bits and pieces he's written down, and they're not necessarily all songs, but when you read them, they're moments in his life where he's needs to express something, and it's gone down on paper,
I
and
love
it's
that.
that's
It's cathartic, it's healing, and it's actually magical. It's alchemy, because at the end of the day, you're something inside of yourself is
yeah.
you're bearing something quite vulnerable about yourself, and in that
Mm.
you are changing it, you know, and then by expressing it and allowing other people to also experience it, and for them to resonate on some level with it, and for it to maybe soothe something in them or inspire them in
Mm.
some way, you know, it's just, it's service, you're giving back. And I
Mm.
love that about
Mm.
particularly songs, because
Mm.
they I feel that songs aren't necessarily ever written to only be heard by yourself. You know, you generally write a
No,
song because
no.
you want to share it, you want it to be heard by the
Yeah,
people.
yeah,
Whereas with your
absolutely.
journal, it's usually going to be a private thing. And so I
Yeah,
love journaling, don't get me wrong. I feel like it's been a big part of my journey, and I do it regularly. But yeah, so I love that you know, the songs, it's your way of showing your vulnerability, and I think that there's
yeah,
something super magical in that. I say that
yeah,
11:11 on the
absolutely.
clock.
Oh yeah,
uh,
well, it's a good thing it wasn't on the Christmas screen.
so, Carly, tell me about
Oh gosh.
your experience of particularly story, and how that has kind of manifested in your life so far, and what you love about story particularly.
Oh, where do we start? Are you all sitting comfortably? Have you got a brew? And how long have we got? Um,
Go for it, my love, go for it.
oh, beautiful. So, right, my story. So, as a kid, I always loved to read. Um, Not necessarily a massive amount of informative text. I grew up with Famous Five. So I read, you know, I would listen to audiobook. I mean, people as old as me will remember storyteller tapes. You know, you'd put the tape in and read along with a magazine. And you know, there's somebody still selling those on eBay. I found one the other day. So there was one particularly always stuck in my mind, and it was Drummer Boy, and it was about this. About a pony, oh, of course. Always about animals, and ponies always resonate. And Drummer Boy, the basic of it was this little girl who rode this pony, and her dad wasn't particularly very nice. He was the local councillor, and he said the pony was dangerous, and basically he had to win the race. So they secretly entered Drummer Boy into the country race, and she rode him, and she's a tiny little tot. he looked after her and took her around the waist and won, yay! And then the meanie daddy went, I love the pony, I want to keep him. And it's things like that that have always, you know, my stories have always been a massive part. So obviously you go through life, you not TikTok the media level, but you go, you know, live life, you know, rave, repeat, eat, sleep, rave, repeat, that type of thing. You have children. I lost grip of reading or listening. And in my latter years, I then picked up audiobooks, which I love because I've now got to that point in life I can only read a paragraph and then I fall asleep. And then I read the same paragraph and then I fall asleep. It takes me 6 weeks to get past the first paragraph in a book.
I hear you. The amount of people that have said to me, I've got to be honest with you, I am trying to read your book, but, and I'm like, look, no shade, no shame, please, I totally get it.
Yeah. So I thank God for audio. Hurrah!
Hurrah,
So
indeed.
in my normal everyday muggly job, going round the houses, as Terry Pratchett would have put it, great author. It all really kicked off and started. Actually, listening to books really kicked off and started when we hit COVID. So the world had a rest for a while, and I actually ended up refencing the field where the ponies and the sheep are. And started listening to, my dad had gifted me the Wintersmith book by Sir Terry Pratchett, music done by Still I Span, which is a band I grew up with, obviously all storytelling. So they've done you know, folk songs with storytelling. So you got, you know, Blackjack Davy, which is you know, a song about mining, and then you've got the Raggle Taggle Gypsy, and you know, that's all about the lady of the manor who falls for the bit of rough and disappears off with him. So you know, it's all that, and the Wintersmith and Still I Span, so Terry Pratchett and Still I Span worked very closely together. So he was a huge fan of Still I Span. So I listened to the audio of Wintersmith, which is about Tiffany Aiken, and the crossover between winter and summer, and again folklore. And the Wintersmith accidentally falls in love, not too much of a spoiler, but accidentally falls for Tiffany Aiken. She gets in the way of summer and she has to rectify this. But I then fell in love with the Terry Pratchett stories. So then I started listening to all the Weird Sisters. So lovely Nanny Og, which I've discovered I'm a Nanny Og. I love an innuendo. And that's where I rekindled my love for audiobooks, or books in general. So I've listened to the Weird Sisters, I've listened to, you know, Colour of Magic, I've done all the witchy ones, and I also then done the Night's Watch, and then that encouraged me to then go on and listen to other stories. So I love the Tudors, I love medieval history, so I listen to more sensible things like, you know, It's in the Blood. I listened to a book about King Henry VIII, a factual book. I listened to the amazing books by Sir Ronald Hutton. So he's a huge historian on witchcraft. So I listened to his books. I then took it forward and done the Rebecca Yarros books, so Fourth Wing, the Sarah J. Maas books. And it's escapism for me. So when I'm cleaning or going around the houses or doing normal jobs, I use the rabbit ears where I don't have to think. I absorb more. So that's where my loves of stories have come from. Then having the grandbabies, I would then, years ago before the grandbabies come along, I've got ponies. And somebody said to me, because I put voices to the ponies and put characters to the ponies and all my animals, and you could always see their personality. And I'd be talking to someone who was very dear to me, and I'd be putting all these voices and things. And she'd say to me, "Oh, you need to write books." And I'd be like, "Oh, yeah, I know. Oh, whatever. Yeah. Okay, whatever." And about 2 years ago, I started writing a book of my own. because my granddaughter was then 2, and I'd tell her stories while she was strapped to my back when I was doing the ponies, and I'd make them up. And obviously having grandchildren, start listening or reading Julia Donaldson. We all love Julia Donaldson, Room of Broom, the Gruffalo, all that lovely rhyming song again, isn't it? That rhythmical do 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 do. And I was like, oh, this is really good. And then I was on the stall. I was on the stall. I think it started at Chippenham Folk Festival. That must have been about 4 years ago. So it started at Chippenham Folk Festival. We were talking about books with Emma and my, best mate, and my dad and my other mate Charlene, and we were talking about writing a book. And we were talking about characters, and we came up with Wilma. So and my daughter was there as well, who didn't have Bobbin at the time. So it must have been 4 or 5 years ago. And we went through, perhaps I should do ones about, a witch, but not a pointy hat witch, because we've got to get away from this. All witches have pointy hats, because they don't. And Wilma was the character of Wilma was born. And then about a year later, I then started writing Wilma in the same sort of style as Room the Broom. And then I actually completed it with the help and inspiration of Bob's, my granddaughter. And then it sat there for 3 years, Wilma the Wandering Witch. And then last year, for my 50th, my daughter put her into text and put images with her. So I'll hold my hands up, and I will say they are digital images, but the original Wilma and Hubert were drawn by me. And it's just, when I did it, and I think now I've looked at, I thought about, and it's going to sound awful, but it's something that my grandkids can go back and have a look at. I miss my nana and my, immensely, and I still, I've got photos and things, but my kids can go and, my grandkids can go and read stories that I've created. And from that, I've done a reading a bit like a Tony Box, but I do a stories with Nana B, and my voice is now reading other people's stories on this Nana B podcast, where I literally announce the book and read, and my grandkids can then listen to me chattering on to their heart's content when I'm no longer here. So it's a bit of a legacy little thing for me, really, but I just love the way, in fact, well, I'll take that link somewhere else in a minute, because I know we were going to talk about something, but I just love the way people react to Wilma. And just listen to Bob. When I'd written it with no pictures, and it was literally a story on my phone. So I listened to my granddaughter go, "Again, Nana," and I'd have to read her again. Oh darn! So three or four times whilst mucking out, I had to read Wilma again. I read my story, and that's without pictures. And Bobbin was loving it. So
before you go
stories
anywhere,
for me.
Before you go anywhere else, Carly, have you got a copy of Wilma there that you can show on screen? Because I was just looking for mine and I couldn't. Yay! There she is.
Oh, I can't.
And also, Wilma, is she? Where did the inspiration come for the character of Wilma? I want to know.
Do you know what? I don't know. I would probably say, when I thought of Wilma, for some obscure reason, I could just see her in a tartan skirt with a beret and a pair of boots, and just normal. I think that's about as normal as I could get her. I don't know whether or not my nanny Lou is in there. Probably. There's my great grandma's in there somewhere. She used to wear a tartan skirt and a teapot. I used to call it a teapot cozy hat, like the woolly hat that was knitted. And she had really thick milk Benny Hill glasses. If anyone's old enough knows Benny Hill, those milk bottom thick glasses. But she was typical Cockney. She was born in Paddington, and she was a bit like, sort of little lady. So whether or not it's a bit of her and a bit of me, but I could, so when I thought of Wilma, I need to make her as not old, not young, but as lovable as you possibly can have her. So she is a little bit dizzy, but when you give her a book, she looks in her books. When you give her a book, she's there, she's on it. She can
I
find her
love
cures, she can
that.
find her help.
And
You know,
what I love
she's
about it the most is that there was something that was coming up for me, and I was thinking, there's got to be some influence from your own grandmother or something in there, because you'd mentioned about this reverence to kind of grandmothers, and I think that that's something that comes through really strongly in my own work as well. Like a lot of the work that I'm doing with my own stories, with my own books, is with reverence to my mother's line and my grandmother's, and so I don't know, I was getting that vibe from you as you were talking about Wilma, so I'm really pleased that you said that, because I don't know, I was
yeah,
just feeling that without you having told me about that, if you know what I mean. And
that's
also
cool.
I love the fact that Wilma isn't your traditional, like you say, we're getting away from the pointy hats
No pink
and the
hats.
cats. You know, Wilma's got a
Yeah.
dog. Wilma's friends with a dog, not a cat, and I
She's
love
and it's
that.
yeah, no, she's got a she hasn't got anybody to start with, and in Wilma the Wandering Witch, the first book, she meets her compadre, her friend, who happens to be a Jack Russell. Well, I don't know, but he's a bit smart and he does wear glasses. So he's got the milk bottle glasses, but she hasn't. So there's a swatch over of character. He's also got a waistcoat and a kerchief. I mean, what Jack Russell walks around on his iron legs with a waistcoat and kerchief, but we love him. Um, but he's slightly sharper. You know, Jack Russells are very sharp, and I just could see when I was talking about Wilma that she should look like that and then have a friend. But it's moving away from that. Um, it's trying to say that, you know, witches were and are not were and you know, were, they still are normal people doing normal jobs, being normal things. And it's only Hollywood that has created the pointy hat and the green face and the I'm melting with water and all the cackling. And mind you, when you get a group of women together, we do love a good cackle. It's got to be said. Don't hold back on the cackling. So you know, and it is moving away from that, trying to say that, especially with Wilma, that, you know, they were herbalists, they were midwives, they were undertakers, they were funeral directors, they were medicine women, they were this and men, not just women, and men. They were healers, they were agony aunts, they were everything you possibly could be. And it's, you know, it's other reasons why they were created with pointy hats, and you know, that's another story for another day. But I wanted kids to enjoy the story, but then also, you know, go, oh, witches don't wear pointy hats. They look like my nana. They look like my grandma. They look like someone cuddly who you have that connection with. So she's there to make that connection, and showing that she looks in books is like you can look in your book to find the answer to things. You know, you don't have to, and it's good to look up, to check, you know, to ask questions. So she sort of encourages people to look for herbal things. So don't look in you know, look for the world around you, to look at the world around you. And the answers are there. You've just got to go and find them, and helping people as well. So she's got a second book, which is coming out in Beltane. So whenever this goes out, that's 1st of May. So if you're listening to it already and it's gone past 1st of May, it's already out. Go find the second book.
Yeah, and it'll be coming out just after Beltane. So yeah, and people will be able to go and buy the first book and the second book and have a
so
Wilma
the first
feast.
book and the second book.
Yeah,
So
super
that's her friend.
exciting.
Oh no, that's her friend. There he is. There's her friend.
Yeah,
So she
I
goes
love
off,
it.
and there's a little hint. Oh, that way. There's a little hint to where they end up. So in
I
the
love
first
it.
book, she finds Hubert. and then the second book, she ends up finding someone who she needs to help. And she is the second book is quite poignant for me, personally. So a lady I used to be very good friends with and look after, her name was Audrey. So this is where Audrey's tale comes from. And she was 89, wiser in her years, and we used to have, you tend to keep your feet and lose your head, or lose your feet and keep your head. It seems to be that way round as you get older. And she lost her feet and kept her head. And I walked in, and you just never know sometimes what you're going to get. And she said, I've been thinking. And you go, oh no, here we go. Oh God, what she's been thinking about. And she said, I've been thinking, perhaps we're all like lava in a mill pond. I'm like, right, okay. She said, we climb up the reed, we become a dragonfly, but we can't go back and tell the lava in the mill pond that it's all beautiful because we're now a dragonfly. And she was sort of talking about the moving on progression from end of life. Yeah, I know. It was a bit like that. I was like, oh, okay. I never really thought about that. So we would have these random conversations. So it was not different, but it was one of those like, really? And needless to say, Audrey then has been every time I see a dragonfly, I always go, hello, Mrs. Audrey Lady. I always feel like, and around May is the time of the dragonflies coming out. So it seemed right that Audrey was released on the 1st of May.
Love it.
And Wilma and Hubert help Audrey the lava.
Well,
and if I told
Audrey,
you anymore, you wouldn't go and buy the book.
No. And I have something to say about that, because Audrey, flipping awesome. She was onto something. Because I don't know,
absolutely.
I don't know if you know that I am absolutely obsessed with the Gene Keys, and I love Richard Rudd, who is the man who kind of brought the Gene Keys to life. And I mean, I love contemplating the Gene Keys with people. It's part of the work that I do. And it's been a huge inspiration to me. And there is a prophecy built into the Gene Keys in the Gene Key 55, and it's all about the dragonfly, and it's all about how the dragonfly lives for I think it's something like 2 years underwater as a predator,
as a larva,
as a predator, and in the dark, in the depths, in the murk, and then one day just climbs up and transforms into the most beautiful, like unrecognizable, almost like the metamorphosis of a butterfly, similar in that sense, but goes from the darkness to the light. And we are going through that metamorphosis in the collective at the moment, like this evolution of we are at the beginning of a new epoch for humanity. And it's all written into this Gene Key 55, and this is the time right now that we are in. It's this year and next year when we kind of move through that phase. And so I love that you've just brought that in. Thank you, Audrey, for bringing that in, because it's huge.
She's never very far. I tell you that now. And funny enough, there's a beautiful picture. So Jazzy did the digital imaging because I'm not particularly very good. So whilst Wilma and Hubert are my original pictures, we've then tidied them up, because if they're going to kids, it's more about the story than it is about the digital imaging and about the creativity of it's the creativity of the story. So the pictures just help you give that visualization. But there is a beautiful image that Jazz created of Audrey, where she lets everything happens, and it's very twinkly and very lighty. I can't not show you now, can I? Shall I show you?
Show us.
Just show you that bit. There's lots of little bits, and I'm loving the image. And so
love it. Oh, I just love how everything. I just love how everything is so deeply synchronistic and magical in my life. Thank you for bringing that. Okay, we're going to move on. And we're going to talk about all sorts of things, including Glastonbury. And I'm going to start that conversation off by saying, when we
Yes.
first met this morning, before we press record, you were telling me about Glastonbury and how it's got a special place in your heart. And I was
Yeah.
telling you that I am just this week, literally yesterday, I wrote the first 1,000 words of my spring equinox chapter in the Dandelion Chronicles, and it starts on Glastonbury tour. And
Mm.
so I also have a special connection with Glastonbury, particularly the tour. And so I want to hear about that. Tell me about that.
So Glastonbury, obviously, we've just taken the stall out, Bardware, Frog Lane. We've just it ends up becoming Frog Valley Emporium. So we go out with my two best mates. So Witches Valley and Bardware, Frog Lane become Frog Valley Emporium. And we do the medieval fair in the grounds of the Abbey, which is just amazing. So I went to Glastonbury for the first time only a few years ago, actually. Bearing in mind, I lived in the West Country for 30 years. My long suffering other half took me to Glastonbury for my birthday, which was lovely. And I went up on the tour. And from the moment of seeing it driving along the road, if you've been to Glastonbury, you drive along the road into Glastonbury and you can see it from a distance. Definitely you can see why it was called the Isle of Avalon. So looking at it from an archaeology point of view and a historian point of view, you can see why. Actually, yeah, most of my visual experiences have been in Glastonbury, including the tour. So I know where I'm going with this now. So from seeing the tour on the top of the hill, I was just like, oh, you have that, your stomach jumps, doesn't it? It goes, like that. Ooh, so that moment of excitement, that moment of it's sudden recognition. I'd never been to Glastonbury prior to this. We went up the tour, and from that first experience, it was actually really bizarre. Well, it's not bizarre. We always say it's bizarre, but we know why it happens. So I don't know why we say it's bizarre. I think it's just our way of trying to clock it into our thought pattern, because, anyway. So we went up the tour, we went into the tower on the top, and I looked up, and it's not a particularly nice thing to see, looking up a monk's habit. But anyway, visually in my head, and I could partly see, I could see a pair of monk's feet. And I was just like, oh, I don't know what you're doing there, but I don't think I really want to see that at the minute. No, thank you very much. So we sort of, not at the minute. But also being up there, I felt very grounded. I just wanted to sit down, and just not because I wanted to sit down because I felt that heavy grounded. I just wanted to be there. I wanted to sit, make sure that like every bit I could possibly get sat on the ground. I could also feel and see a lot of battles like going on in my head. So a lot of very Saxon battles, which turns out sort of Somerset Plains were quite Anglo-Saxon Danes thing going on. Just felt very grounded, just felt like I was home. I went away, did a bit of research, and actually found out that there was one of the monks from the Abbey was hung by King Henry VIII of being a traitor in the tour. So I was like, oh, that's why I saw you. Okay, fair enough. So that was my first experience there, but I still feel very much at home. There's certain shops in the high street that I don't feel comfortable with, but there's one that I did. Unfortunately, it's no longer there. It's called the Cat and Cauldron, and it was like a mystical bric-a-brac shop. You know, when you go into a mystical charity shop, like a charity shop, and it's just like bits everywhere. That was like it. It was amazing. And then I had the utmost amazing pleasure of being accepted to do a stall at the medieval fair. Now, I swear one of my past lives is medieval times. I just, that in the 1940s, I just feel, I love medieval history. I feel so comfortable. I definitely was a peasant somewhere along the lines. I just feel comfortable in that era, I wish I'd chosen a cleaner, tidier era rather than living in a muddy puddle, but I seem to resonate with Baldrick a lot. That type of, There's just why if I was going to have an era, why did I decide to live in a muddy puddle? I have no idea. Anyway, I think that's my past me. So I had the absolute pleasure of doing that, and I just feel so comfortable when we do the medieval fair. I just feel so at home. It's me, and the Abbey is amazing. And I've had two amazing experiences in the Abbey. One was with a friend, with one of my best mates, and she saw exactly the same thing at the same time. And there's no way that we both looked at each other and we was like, "Can you see what I can see?" She's like, "Yeah." So we were stood. We literally, it's really lovely. So everybody goes home, and when you're doing the medieval fair, you are obviously still on site, and you look across, and there's all these medieval encampments, and they've got little fire pits going, and it's like you literally have gone and gone back, and you could the smells, the chattering, the whole thing. Obviously they're not talking in French or Latin or anything like that, but it's that you get the whole, you just get the feeling. So there was no general people around, it was just us, and we were stood in the older part of the Abbey, and there was one bit that really drew me to go and stand in it, and I put my hand, and I have never felt it before, but the stone was vibrating under my hand. I could feel it like buzzing, and you take your hand off and you put your hand back on, and I could feel this energy of zzz, and it was just like, oh, that's amazing. And I turned around and I said to him, I went to say something to her, and we both just stood there and was like, oh my days. And we could see the whole of the Abbey. I mean, it's ruins now because it got taken down by Henry VIII. But we could see it, the heights, the light coming in through the stained glass window, the floor, the energy that was at that moment in time. I don't know if it was us. I swear me and her past life, somewhere along the lines. But whether or not it was us in that moment in time stood in that position, but that moment in time, we saw the whole thing. The light, I remember the sun coming through the stained glass windows and hitting the floor. The colours were vibrant, absolutely vibrant. And I can feel, so when spirit or the universe is working with me, I get wobbly legs, I get fuzzy legs, and I could feel this real intense fuzziness, more so than when I have it normally, and it was quite intense, and there was a buzziness going up and down the hall, like you could feel people sort of running up with baskets of bread or food, or there was a busyness going on. And I looked at Em and I went, is it just me? And she was like, no. And we both at the same time started saying what we could see and everything. And I said to her, I'm going to have to step outside the wall. And it's really weird. You step outside the wall. So I stepped out of that, and I had to sit down because I said to her, this is just getting really intense in a nice way, but it was getting too much. So I stepped out and it sort of stopped. And I haven't had anything quite like that since. Saying that, was a little bit like that the weekend, but not to that degree. But the beauty of this place was amazing, and I still cannot figure out whether or not it was Emma. I knew Emma, but she wasn't in her present form. We were still both girls, but we were just in a different form, if you know what I mean. So I recognised her, but I recognised her but didn't recognise her. Does that make sense? Yes, I think it does.
Yeah,
but you know what I mean.
it definitely makes sense to me. Not that I've ever had that experience, but as you're saying it,
Yeah.
I'm totally with you.
Yeah, so I recognised her, but I didn't recognise her, if you know what I mean. So we knew each other. So that was the first visual experience like that I had at Glastonbury Abbey. Again, felt very much at home. It felt very familiar. The Abbey just feels very familiar. And then last year, we were slightly in a different pitch to what we've been before. We were further up towards the older part of the Abbey with the stall, and we were packing down. It had been a bit of a crazy weekend, and we were packing down, and I thought not Emma, I thought my friend Charlene was up walking around the car, because it was a bit dusky, you know. I thought she was up walking around the car this side of me, and I sort of looked, and I could sort of see somebody moving, and I then sort of looked back the other way, and she was down by the other car. And I was like, were you, who did he, what's he, who do you what's that? And she went, oh, that's all right. She said he's been floating around all day, and it was a monk. It was the back end of a monk in a grey habit. And I'm, you know, when you sort of, I believe, but I also go and look for the logic. So I look for the logic, and then I back it up. And I then done some research, and apparently this grey monk, loads of people have seen visually this grey monk in the spot where we were. And I was like, yeah, okay, I'll clock that then. So Glastonbury, even then, where some people would have gone and run away, it's something I can't explain, but even then I still felt at home. I still feel so at home. As I say, there's bits of Glastonbury, but I don't feel connected to. Chalice Well, I did a hand fasting the weekend, on Saturday evening for a lovely couple, and we had exclusive use of the Chalice Well when everybody had gone home. You have those moments in time, and I think I put it on the Bardware page, where you want to pinch yourself and go, is this real? And I wanted to pinch myself, because my lovely couple had gone, and I was just packing up my altar and my stuff, and the bottom fountain, the waterfall, was in front of me, and I just looked up, and the sun was shining on it, and it was like glowing orange, and I was just like, a surreal moment, just a surreal moment. I cannot believe I have just done a hand fasting in the Chalice Well. If you'd said to me 10 years ago, 10 years time, you're going to be doing a hand fasting in the Chalice Well, I would turn around and said, you're just a silly sort. Of course I would be doing things like that. But I had that moment where I just thanked everything in alignment to be able to do that. And I didn't realise that the Chalice Well was on a St Michael line as well, which I didn't realise it was on one of the sort of spiritual ley lines. But that moment in time, I just felt so held. Do you know what I mean? I just felt there was this moment of complete and utter peace, just not peace and quiet, but calm and peace, and I just felt held. It was only like I don't know, about 5 seconds, but I was I can't quite put it into words. It was just a moment of about.
We do live for those moments in time where time just seems to suspend, and pause, and I'm getting an echoing in my ear again, which probably signifies that we should come to the end of this conversation. However, before we do, I want to just say about how magical it is that we get to create with this level of consciousness where we get to not only experience magical things like that thinning of the veil, where we step into kind of a slice of history, or we have soul contact with somebody that we're journeying with right now, that we may have been journeying with in a previous life, and just the acceptance of all of that. And like you alluded to at the beginning, where more and more people are starting to wake up to what is actually a much bigger picture of reality, And there is all this mysticism and magical wonderment and enchantment that goes on around us. And when you start to notice all of those synchronicities and then create from that place, I feel very, very hopeful for the future and the future human and all of that stuff. And you mentioned earlier about how you have combined elements from your childhood and your past and your memories to create Wilma the Wandering Witch and her compadre, the little dog. Is it Herbert? Did you say Hubert?
Hubert, yeah.
Hubert.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of how in the Dandelion Chronicles I am kind of mixing elements of my great-grandmother's great-great-grandmother's story with my grandmother's story with my story and with the story of my daughter, and kind of bringing that all together to create something new. And I love how that creativity is awakened within myself, that imagination, and I can definitely feel that in you as well. And I'm so pleased to have met you, Carly. It's just a joy, real joy to know you and to be invited into your spaces, and hopefully in the future you can come and be in some of my spaces as well, and we just keep weaving this beautiful story of creation together.
Keep support. Well, I love support. Every time you got your stuff, I always support you and try and share you and get you out there, because that's what it's all. Terry Pratchett, actually it was his birthday today, the day that we are recording this, Mr. Pratchett's birthday, and he said something in one of his and actually I think it was his autobiography, saying a ripple, someone lasts as long as their ripple when they pass away. And I think if we keep that ripple going, that's how we pass it on to other people. It goes along with the Spike Milligan poem Smile. So if you haven't found it, go and find it. It's a Spike Milligan poem called Smile, and it says about smiling at a person and infecting the world with this smile, because that person will then smile at someone else, and then that person will then smile at someone else. So as long as we keep rippling with each other and keep vibing that way and supporting each other.
Carly. I am going to share that poem as part of the release of this podcast. I'll put it in the blog and things like that. So yeah, thank you for that shout out. And also, can I just say, Baldrick, love.
I'm a huge Blackadder fan. We won't even go there.
And also,
I love Baldrick.
We could talk all day. We knew this would happen. But we didn't even get round to talking about Castle Combe, but you live in Castle Combe, and Castle Combe is a super magical place.
Another place that feels like home. And the New Forest, another place that feels like home. But Castle Combe, we'll save that for another day, otherwise this podcast would not stop.
We are so blessed with these sacred lands that are all around us here in the southwest of England, and I'm so pleased to be on the planet in such close proximity to you, my dear. So thank you.
And thank you for inviting me on. It's been an absolute pleasure, as always. It's been a pleasure.
Before we go, where can people expect to find you over the... And I'm definitely coming to one of those medieval fairs to see the Abbey, because I've never been there and it sounds absolutely amazing. So tell us where we can find you, just a few places, and hopefully people will come and say hi if they see this and they find you.
So where they can find Bardware of Frog Lane is Facebook, Wonderful Words, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, all social platforms. We've got a webpage. Wilma is available on Amazon, but also available on the stall. And the stall you will find Castle Combe Steam Rally, funny enough.
I'll be there.
Couple of weeks time. We're at Marshfield May Day on the 9th of May. We're at Chippenham Folk Festival end of May. Castle Combe actually has a mystic market, I think, on the 21st of June. So we've got a little mystic market in the village hall, plus anything you want to find. If you pop on the Bardware Facebook page, it will come up. But yeah, we're at Sudeley Castle, so if anyone goes to Fancy Forest, we're going to be there. We're going to a new one in August called Keltfest as well. But mainly, most of the time, I'm in my hometown. But if you follow the Bardware page, you'll find us. So Castle Combe Market, Chippenham Folk Festival and the Steam Rally are the closest ones coming up in May.
And do go and say hi to Kylie if you do see them, because you'll get a very warm reception. I can vouch for that.
Oh, bless you.
Thank you so much,
I'm all right.
Kylie.
As got me brew. I'm good.
Yeah. Well, you go and have a wonderful, beautiful day, whatever you've got planned, and I will speak to you very soon, my dear. Thanks again.
Thank you so much. Lots of
Bye,
love.
bye.
My voice can't show me the way.